On a quiet spring morning, Katie, now 28, stood across the street from the house where she grew up. The windows were open, and she could hear her family moving around in confusion as they tried to understand why nothing in the house worked anymore. She whispered to herself, "Now they notice something." 3 weeks earlier, on Easter Sunday, they had made her sleep in the garden shed like she was nothing. That night, she left without a single word. And the moment she disappeared, every comfort they took for granted slowly disappeared with her. Katie had always felt invisible in that house. Her older brother, David, 31, was treated like the prince. Her younger sister, Annie, 25, was the family baby who never grew up. And then there was Katie, the middle child, quiet, overlooked, and always expected to handle everything. She worked as an IT specialist downtown, earning good money, yet no one ever asked what she did or how much she made. What they didn't know was that she had been silently paying every household utility bill, electricity, water, gas, internet, even cable, for 6 full years. Back then, nobody ever wondered who kept the lights on or who made sure the water stayed hot. Katie remembered the day she set up the automatic payments. Her mother, Maria, had complained about online banking being too stressful. Katie offered help. Maria brushed her off but never actually handled it. So Katie made the calls herself, transferred all accounts into her name, and set up payments from her checking account. When she told her mother, Maria only nodded while scrolling her phone. That nod became 6 years of silence, responsibility, and being unseen. Over 6 years, Katie paid more than $60,000 in household bills. Yet she could disappear for an entire week, and no one noticed except to say, "Where's the coffee?" She once returned from a business trip and found her mother complaining about the mess in the house, never asking where Katie had been. Meanwhile, David had his own office for his struggling law work, and Annie had turned the sunroom into a filming studio. Katie, however, worked from a cramped storage room above the garage, a room too hot in summer and freezing in winter. At work, Katie was seen and respected. Her boss praised her, her team depended on her, and she had just received her 3rd promotion in 4 years. Senior IT Systems Director, with a salary higher than David's. She came home excited that day, ready to share her achievement, but found her family planning David's birthday party instead. She stood quietly in the doorway for 5 minutes. No one looked up. No one asked about her day. Her mother finally shouted, "Leftovers in the fridge, Katie. And please pay the electric bill. We got a notice." Katie checked the electricity account that night and saw the payment had already gone through, just like every month. The notice was only a service update, but no one bothered to understand that. She sat on her small bed under the slanted ceiling, staring at her phone. "Why do I even try?" she whispered. Her brother, David, never struggled alone. His gambling debts from law school had been paid off by their parents without hesitation. Her sister, Annie, constantly lost jobs but still acted like a celebrity. Meanwhile, Katie had been quietly building her savings and her future. Katie had an excellent credit score, a strong savings account, and a retirement fund she managed on her own. But none of that mattered at home. To her family, she was simply the person who handled stuff. The week before Easter, everything felt the same as always. Maria, her mother, gave her a long shopping list for the family gathering. Ham, turkey, roast beef, ingredients for 6 desserts. Katie asked, "Do you want to split the cost this time?" But Maria waved her off. "You always handle the groceries, dear. You're so organized." Katie swallowed her frustration and said nothing. Monday, Katie bought everything. $400 worth of groceries. When she returned home carrying heavy bags, she found David on the couch playing video games. Annie was live streaming about the importance of family traditions. Neither offered to help. Katie carried every bag inside alone. On Tuesday, she used her vacation day to clean the house. Her mother instructed her, "Make sure the bathrooms sparkle. People will be taking pictures." While Katie scrubbed the kitchen floor, Annie stepped over her and said, "Move a little, Katie. You're in my shot." Katie didn't reply. She had learned silence long ago. Wednesday morning brought the first true warning sign. Maria casually announced, "Your cousin Jenny will be staying in your room with her baby." Katie blinked. "What? Where am I supposed to sleep?" Maria didn't even look up. "Oh, we'll figure that out later." When David suggested the couch, Maria refused. "It won't look good to guests." Jenny arrived later with luggage and immediately said, "This room is small, but I guess it'll do." Katie stood there as her belongings were pushed into boxes. Feeling invisible once again, she whispered, "So, where am I sleeping?" No one answered. That night, Katie slept on towels laid across the laundry room floor. She used her coat as a pillow while the washing machine clicked softly beside her. From the hallway, she heard her family laughing and sharing stories. Stories she was somehow absent from, even ones she remembered clearly. "How can someone be in a family and still not exist?" she whispered to herself. In the morning, she rose before everyone else to start cooking again, because the Easter feast wouldn't make itself. She cracked eggs, prepared dough, chopped vegetables, and murmured, "Just get through this week, Katie." By Friday morning, Katie was already exhausted, but she kept working. 2 hams needed slow roasting, 3 dozen eggs needed deviling, and she had to prepare enough sides to feed 30 people. At noon, Maria walked into the kitchen, tasted the potato salad and said, "Needs more mayo," before leaving for a Good Friday lunch at the country club. David was working, and Annie complained that the house smelled too much like food. Katie worked 15 hours straight, burning her fingers on hot pans. When her father, Henry, came home, he only asked, "Did you remember my mustard sauce?" Saturday was even harder. Guests started arriving in small waves. When cousin Jenny entered the house, she took one look at the decorations and said, It's a bit much." Katie forced a smile and replied, "Glad it works for you." Jenny only shrugged and said, "The baby needs quiet for naps." Katie later found that her things had been shoved into boxes again to make space for Jenny's baby equipment. When she confronted her mother, Maria waved her hand. "Don't worry about sleeping arrangements. We'll sort it out later." This later never came. She slept on the laundry floor again. Easter morning, Katie started cooking at 4 a.m. The house smelled like cinnamon rolls and fresh coffee by sunrise. The first relatives came downstairs around 8, smiling and thanking Maria for the wonderful breakfast. Maria accepted their praise with a soft smile. "It's nothing really." Katie stood behind the counter quietly, filling trays and cleaning pans. David walked by and joked, "Hope you didn't burn anything, Katie." Annie filmed a TikTok saying, "Look at this beautiful breakfast we made." Katie whispered to herself, "We? Sure." Then she poured more orange juice and kept working. Children began the Easter egg hunt around 11 a.m. while parents relaxed on patio chairs Katie had scrubbed clean. Through the window, she watched David brag to everyone about a case he was handling, even though she knew he had exaggerated most of the details. Annie filmed everything, carefully avoiding angles that showed Katie. Lunch started at 1, and the buffet was stunning. Fresh rolls, glazed ham, colorful salads, and a 3-tier cake she had decorated over 8 hours. As people filled their plates, they said, "Maria, you outdid yourself." Maria accepted every compliment without correcting anyone. Katie ate quietly in the corner, using a plate of leftovers because the best food was already gone. Then Aunt Patricia walked over with her usual judgmental expression. "So, Katie, still single? No prospects?" Katie forced a smile. "I'm focused on my career right now." Patricia laughed. "Career is fine, but look at Jenny, she has a baby. That's real fulfillment." Katie clenched her jaw. Before she could answer, Patricia added, "Your mother must worry about you. 28 and no husband." Katie whispered, "I'm fine." But inside, she felt something heavy beginning to crack. The afternoon dragged until around 5, when Maria pulled Katie into the pantry. "We have a situation," she said. "Jenny's baby isn't sleeping well, and we're out of rooms." Katie waited, already sensing something terrible. Maria finally said, "We need you to sleep in the shed tonight. Just one night." Don't be dramatic. Katie stared at her. The shed. Mom, are you serious? Maria crossed her arms. Please stop making this difficult. Katie whispered. You're asking your daughter to sleep where we keep lawn tools. Maria sighed. It's only one night, Katie. Be reasonable. Katie approached her father for support. Dad, Mom wants me to sleep in the shed. You don't think that's right, do you? Henry opened one eye from his recliner and muttered. Stop being dramatic, Katie. It's just one night. Family sacrifices. David overheard and burst out laughing. The shed. That's actually hilarious. Annie raised her phone to record her reaction, but Katie turned away quickly. As she walked toward her room to grab blankets, Jenny looked at her with false sympathy. It's rough, Katie, but the baby needs comfort. You wouldn't understand, you're not a mom. The shed was dusty, cold, and smelled like chemicals. Katie set the old camping cot under the single bulb and sat quietly. Through the dirty window, she could see the family laughing over dessert, the dessert she made. They looked warm, happy, complete. Not one person noticed she wasn't there. I'm not part of this family, she whispered. I'm part of the labor. Sitting on the cot, she realized something. She had spent her whole life hoping they would see her. Tonight proved they never would. And for the first time, she didn't feel sadness. She felt clarity. Katie lay awake until 2 a.m., fully dressed, planning her exit. Her car was parked on the street, which was perfect. No one would notice her leaving. When the house fell silent, she slipped out of the shed and entered through the unlocked back door. First, she gathered her clothes from the boxes in the hallway. Then she retrieved her laptop and the jewelry box her grandmother left her. She made several trips to her car, moving quietly past the squeaky hallway floorboard. No one stirred. No one cared enough to notice. Then came the moment that changed everything. Katie walked into her father's office, opened his computer, and logged in using the password she had created for him. One by one, she opened each utility account, electric, gas, water, internet, cable, all in her name, all paid by her money. She cancelled every service. Let's see how they live without their invisible helper, she whispered. She then downloaded 6 years of receipts, over $60,000, to protect herself if they tried anything later. For the first time in her life, she felt powerful. She wasn't running away, she was reclaiming herself. Before leaving, Katie walked through the quiet house one last time. The kitchen was spotless from her hours of work. The refrigerator was full of leftovers she had cooked. She paused near the dining room table where her family had laughed without noticing her absence. Then she found the quilt her grandmother made, the only family member who ever saw her worth. Her mother had kept it stored away, for special occasions. Katie whispered, "Grandma, I'm taking this now," and gently folded it. Standing in the foyer, she thought about leaving a note, then realized they wouldn't understand it anyway. At 2:45 a.m., Katie drove away without looking back. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lisa, her coworker and only real friend. "Are you okay? You seemed off Friday." Katie smiled for the first time in days. She replied, "I'm about to be better than okay. Can I stay with you for a bit?" Lisa answered instantly, "Course. Come now if you need." When Katie reached the apartment building, Lisa was waiting in her pajamas, holding 2 cups of tea. She didn't ask questions, she simply said, "Come inside, Katie. Whatever happened, we'll figure it out." Once inside Lisa's loft, Katie finally broke down, not from sadness but from relief. Lisa listened quietly as Katie told her everything. The shed, the years of being invisible, the utility payments, the nights spent working while her family relaxed. Lisa's expression shifted from concern to anger. "Katie, this isn't just disrespect. This is exploitation." Katie wiped her eyes. "I knew they took advantage of me, but hearing you say it out loud..." Lisa leaned forward. "You did nothing wrong. You protected yourself. And trust me, they will come after you. Not because they miss you, but because their comfort is gone." Katie spent the night at Lisa's, finally sleeping deeply beneath her grandmother's quilt. Monday morning felt strangely peaceful. She called her office and requested a few personal days. Her boss replied, "Take all the time you need, Katie. We'll manage here." Meanwhile, back at the Morrison house, the chaos began. David stepped into the shower and cursed as the water turned ice cold. Annie tried to start a live stream, only to discover there was no Wi-Fi. Maria complained to Henry, "Something is wrong with the electricity." Henry muttered, "Call Katie. She handles those things." By noon, Katie's phone showed 7 missed calls from her mother, 4 from her father, and several from David. She didn't answer. Instead, she enjoyed takeout Thai food with Lisa, laughing for the first time in months. Katie asked, "Do you think I was harsh?" Lisa shook her head. "No. Katie, you didn't punish them. They punished themselves by depending on someone they never respected." Later that evening, another voicemail came from Maria. "Katie, call me immediately. The electric company says the account was cancelled. This can't be right." Katie turned off her phone again and breathed. Tuesday morning, things got worse for her family. The water shut off. The internet and cable went dark. Annie sent a frantic voice message. "Katie, my followers are angry. I lost 3,000 people. How could you do this? You're ruining my career." David texted in all caps, "What did you do?" He added that the electric company now required an $800 deposit to restore power. Katie almost laughed. $800, she told Lisa. "That's nothing compared to what I paid every month." Lisa replied, "That's what happens when people who have everything done for them finally do it themselves." Katie spent Tuesday apartment hunting with one of Lisa's colleagues, who knew a landlord renting a beautiful 1-bedroom unit. It had tall windows, a modern kitchen, and a quiet atmosphere, nothing like her cramped storage room back home. The landlord reviewed her credit score and said, "Impressive. You're exactly the kind of tenant we want." Katie smiled shyly. "Thank you." She signed the lease immediately. As she stood in her new empty living room, she said softly, "This is mine. Just mine. No clutter, no shouting, no being overlooked. Just peace and a fresh beginning." On Wednesday morning, Katie finally sent a single message to the family group chat. "All utilities were in my name and paid by me for 6 years. I've cancelled all accounts. You will need to open new ones. Attached is proof of my payments. $61,437. I will no longer be subsidizing the household." Seconds later, messages exploded. Her father called her ungrateful. Her mother said, "You're breaking my heart." David threatened legal action. Annie demanded, "Fix this now. I need internet." Katie blocked every number without hesitation. Then she carried her boxes into her new apartment with a smile. Thursday, Katie returned to work. Her colleagues noticed the change in her immediately. "You look lighter," one coworker said. Her boss invited her into her office. "Katie, if you need support, we're here. And by the way, your promotion allows 2 remote days a week. Use them." Katie nodded gratefully. Meanwhile, chaos continued at her old house. Through her cousin Bradley, she learned that the family had been forced to sell Annie's BMW to cover the utility deposits. Bradley texted her, "Good for you, Katie. They treated you terribly. They needed this wake-up call." For once, someone understood. By the end of the week, Katie learned her family had shown up at her workplace. Reception called her. "Your parents are downstairs demanding to see you." Katie felt her heart drop but stayed firm. "Please tell them I'm unavailable," she said calmly. When they refused to leave, security escorted them out. Her boss later said, "If they show up again, HR can send a legal notice." Katie nodded. That afternoon, the letter was sent, a formal warning not to contact her at work again. For the first time in her life, Katie felt protected instead of exploited. After the workplace incident, Katie settled fully into her new apartment. She bought new bedsheets, organized her closet, and set her laptop on a real desk by the window. That evening, she and Lisa cooked dinner together. Something simple, pasta and garlic bread. "Katie," Lisa said gently, You've carried your whole family for years. Don't forget that. Katie nodded. It's strange, she admitted. I keep waiting to feel guilty, but I don't. Lisa smiled. Because you finally chose yourself. Katie looked around her peaceful space and whispered, maybe for the first time ever. I feel safe. News from her old home continued to reach her through Bradley, the only relative who seemed to genuinely care. They had to throw out everything in the refrigerator, he wrote. No power for 2 days. Another message followed. David missed court. His phone died and he had no way to charge it. Katie sighed. They still think I'll come back one day. Lisa replied. They're not used to consequences. That night, Katie sat on her balcony with a cup of tea, thinking. Why is it, she whispered, that the people you love most expect the most from you? 2 weeks later, Bradley sent another update. Annie lost her brand deals, he wrote. She can't post because her algorithm died. She's miserable. Katie shook her head softly. She depended on an image, not work. Bradley added, your parents are struggling to budget. They've never done it before. Katie replied simply, they'll survive. She knew they would, but she also knew they'd have to live within reality now, not the fantasy they built on her invisible labor. Later that evening, Lisa asked, do you want revenge? Katie shook her head. No, I only want freedom. 3 weeks after Easter, Katie received a formal email from her mother. The message was long, full of guilt and accusations. But buried in the middle was a sentence that made Katie laugh out loud. Family doesn't keep score. Family helps each other. She whispered to herself. They only believe that when the help comes from me. She didn't respond. Instead, she forwarded the email to Lisa, who rolled her eyes. Classic manipulation, Lisa said. You made the right choice. Katie closed her laptop and said, I'm done letting them define what family is supposed to mean. Life began settling into a new rhythm. Katie woke early to soft sunlight instead of family chaos. She brewed good coffee, worked from home 2 days a week, and spent evenings watching movies or cooking with Lisa. At work, she excelled and her team appreciated her. One morning, her boss said, Katie, your leadership is impressive. Keep this up. It was the first time in her life someone acknowledged her contribution before asking for something. She smiled and replied, Thank you. I'm finally learning how to take care of myself. And she meant it. But her family wasn't quite done. A month after Easter, Katie received a letter at her new apartment. It was from David, written like a legal threat. He claimed she owed the family support and abandoned her responsibilities. Katie handed it to Lisa, who burst out laughing. He's bluffing, she said. And badly. Lisa drafted a firm reply. Any further harassment will be met with legal action. Cease immediately. Days later, a smaller letter arrived, this time from Henry. The message was short. You've made your position clear. We won't contact you again. Katie read it twice without emotion. 2 months passed. Through Bradley, Katie learned the house was being sold. They couldn't afford it anymore. They're moving into a small rental, Bradley wrote. David and Annie are moving back in with them. Katie imagined the 4 of them squeezed together, learning how to clean and pay bills without her. For years she had been the scaffolding holding their world up. Now, without her, their lives simply settled into the level they could truly sustain. She didn't feel guilty. She whispered, Everyone is finally living in the world they created. 3 months after Easter, Katie received another promotion. Head of IT security. Came with a big raise and a team of 12. Her co-workers celebrated her with a cake and a card filled with handwritten messages praising her leadership. That night, she went to dinner with Lisa and her new colleagues. When they lifted their glasses for a toast, someone said, To Katie, the one who keeps everything running. Katie felt tears in her eyes. For once, the words weren't an expectation. They were gratitude. She whispered, Thank you, knowing she had built this life by choosing herself. 6 months later, Katie ran into Jenny at a coffee shop. Jenny approached nervously, pushing her stroller. "Katie, you look amazing," she said softly. Katie gave a polite nod. Jenny fidgeted. "Listen, about Easter. We didn't realize what you were doing for the family. A lot of us think it was wrong how you were treated." Katie looked at her calmly and asked, "Did you think it was wrong when you watched me walk to the shed?" Jenny's eyes fell. I didn't know what to say." Katie stepped back. "Silence is a choice, Jenny. Goodbye." 1 year after Easter, Katie stood in her own apartment, still peaceful, still hers, reflecting on how far she'd come. She had friends who valued her, a career that respected her, and a life built entirely on her own terms. She often thought about the shed. Not with pain but with gratitude. "That night didn't break me," she whispered. "It freed me." In choosing to walk away, she discovered her worth, something her family never recognized. She didn't need their approval to shine. She always had the strength. She only needed to step into her own light. And she did.